In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, October 5th, North Korea's most recent provocation over Japan's airspace has been met with similar shows of might by South Korea and the US, which involved missile launches and precision bombing. South Korea's inflation rose 5.6% in September on year, but was slightly down from expectations that it would remain unchanged from August's 5.7%. And curtains are up for the annual International Film Festival in the southern port city of Busan, starting today with organizers pledging a pre-pandemic experience of glitz and glamour. North Korea's latest display of defiance has been met with a decisive demonstration of deterrence by South Korea and the US, as the two countries have been engaged in their own shows of military might following Tuesday's provocation by Pyongyang over Japanese airspace. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Bae Eun-ji starts us off.
South Korea and the U.S. each fired 2 ATACMS surface-to-surface missiles toward waters east of the Korean Peninsula, in response to North Korea's intermediate-range ballistic missile launch the day before. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced Wednesday that they precisely hit a mock target in the East Sea, which demonstrated the Allies' capabilities to deter further provocations from the North. It also said the tests show that Seoul and Washington are capable of striking North Korean launch sites precisely. The South Korean military also fired a Hyunmoo-2 surface-to-surface missile, although it failed shortly after launch and crashed inside the area of the base. The JCS confirmed that no casualties were reported and that it's looking into the matter to find out the exact cause of the malfunction. Videos taken by residents in the eastern coastal city of Gangneung showed a bright flash and a loud noise, as if from an explosion. Meanwhile, in a show of force against the North threat, the American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan Strike Group will return to South Korea on Wednesday. The supercarrier was here last week to hold a bilateral maritime exercise with South Korea, as well as a trilateral exercise with Japan. South Korea's military said it's very unusual for the strike group to be redeployed so soon, adding the measure is to strengthen combined readiness with the U.S., following a series of provocations from North Korea. The move comes after the Allies also held a bombing drill on Tuesday evening, involving 4 South Korean F-15K fighters and 4 American F-16 warplanes flying in formation. One of the South Korean aircraft dropped 2 joint direct attack munitions that hit the uninhabited island of Dokdo, located off the west coast of South Korea. This type of weapon is effective in precision strikes.
The South Korean Air Force's F-15K fighters took part in a precision bombing training where they fired 2 air-to-surface joint direct attack munitions toward a fake target on Dokdo, an island located in the West Sea.
Following the North's missile launch, South Korea's Defense Minister Lee Jong-seop held phone talks with his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin, where they agreed that the regime's provocation is a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Seoul's defense ministry said the 2 officials also reaffirmed commitment to strongly respond to any kind of threats by North Korea, through ways such as deploying U.S. strategic assets on the Korean Peninsula. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
And beyond the Korean Peninsula, U.S. President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida have denounced North Korea's latest missile launch over Japan's airspace. Speaking over the phone on Tuesday, the 2 leaders reportedly reiterated Pyongyang's persistent violations of UN Security Council resolutions. According to the White House, both Biden and Kishida decried the latest displays of blatant defiance. The 25-minute exchange ended with the heads of state agreeing to bolster their deterrence capabilities. Also, in related news, the international community has condemned North Korea's most recent violation of UN resolutions. Our Kim Yeon-seung reports.
Dangerous and reckless is how the U.S. described North Korea's missile launch. The U.S. National Security Council issued a statement Monday local time denouncing the latest provocation. Spokesperson Adrienne Watson said it demonstrated the North's blatant disregard for UN Security Council resolutions and international safety norms. She also said National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke with Japanese and South Korean counterparts about appropriate and robust joint and international responses. The European Council also spoke up. Charles Michel, the president of the EU, tweeted that he strongly condemns North Korea's deliberate attempt to jeopardize security and that such an action was an unjustified aggression and blatant violation of international law. He also made clear that the European body stands by South Korea and Japan. Belgian Foreign Minister Hajjel Labib also tweeted about standing in solidarity, calling the latest firing ill-advised, dangerous, and shows a total disrespect for international rules. An expert said South Korea, the U.S., and Japan will now look to the UN Security Council to deter North Korea's threats. But he also said that any action may be insufficient with two major powers backing up North Korea.
China and Russia, they are not going to do anything. They are going to exercise one more time about the veto power to pass any kind of a resolution to put on the additional sanction on North Korea.
He even added that he sees it likely that North Korea's frequent missile launches this year have been fueled and inspired by Russia's war on Ukraine.
Overall, the Putin's Russia said very clearly that they are continue to use the nuclear blackmail or threat to use to the Ukraine and other European countries, and it makes the North Korea the more emboldened to use their nuclear blackmail.
Russia has not yet officially reacted to the launch, but China did in a written interview with Yonhap News Agency. China's foreign ministry said that it hopes for what it called a balanced resolution through talks and negotiation. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, diplomats from South Korea, the US and Japan have agreed to hold a trilateral meeting in Tokyo in the coming weeks to address Pyongyang's persistent provocations. The agreement came during talks between First Vice Foreign Minister Cho Hyun-dong and his US and Japanese counterparts Wendy Sherman and Takeo Mori back on Tuesday. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, Wednesday, the three officials reaffirmed their trilateral commitment against North Korea's repeated violations of UN resolutions. Also, in a separate call, Cho and Sherman vowed to respond sternly to North Korea's belligerence while maintaining a firm combined defense posture. On the international front, a British media report about Russia moving equipment from a nuclear weapons unit has independent pundits and government authorities divided over its implications. Our Kim Hyo-sun explains.
A train operated by Russia's secretive nuclear division has reportedly left the country, apparently heading for Ukraine. Citing a Poland-based defense analyst, British newspaper The Times reported Monday that the train, which was spotted in central Russia, was linked to a division that is responsible for nuclear munitions, storage, maintenance, transport, and issuance to units. The article says this is seen as a, quote, signal to Western powers. President Vladimir Putin has already described his willingness to use any means to defend what he calls Russian territory as his forces crumble, with Ukraine liberating the country's eastern and southern regions despite Russia's desperate attempt to annex them. Such rhetoric has raised the question of whether Russia would go as far as to use nuclear weapons. Following the report, the Kremlin explained Tuesday that it does not want to get involved with the, quote, nuclear rhetoric from the West.
You know, Western media, Western politicians, heads of state are now getting a lot of practice spreading nuclear rhetoric. We do not want to take part in it.
Meanwhile, Washington also says that it has no indication that Moscow is preparing to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine.
But I do want to say, that we have not seen any reason to adjust our own strategic nuclear posture, nor do we have indication that Russia is preparing to imminently use nuclear weapons.
In addition, the White House announced a new security assistance package to provide Ukraine with more weapons, ammunition, and equipment worth over $600 million. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
On the local economic front, inflation accelerated 5.6% in September on year, but was slightly down from expectations that it would remain unchanged from August's 5.7%, which in itself was a decline for the first time in 7 months. Our Arirang has the latest.
South Korea's recent consumer prices appear to be easing. At least that's what data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows. According to the latest report, last month's consumer price index came in at 108.93, which is an increase of 5.6% compared to the same period last year. It's the second consecutive month that an on-year figure has remained below 6%. Statistics Korea says September's index was largely backed by industrial goods, especially petroleum products. Petroleum products increased 16.6% on year, continuing a downward trend from the peak in June. Industrial products overall rose 6.7%, while agriculture and livestock were up 6.2%. With the government already forecasting consumer prices to reach their peak in October, all eyes are on whether the public will begin to see some of their financial burden eased. Experts also say consumer prices may see an increase in October following a rise in gas and electricity prices and a high $1 exchange rate. Meanwhile, despite 2 months of falling prices, consumers are still concerned about high prices as they say it's still time to tighten belts.
The price of cabbage is so high, it's really making me hesitant about buying groceries. Ingredients are expensive, so I'm thinking of buying kimchi instead of making it myself.
I tend to look for coupons to watch movies or go see exhibitions. It makes prices of tickets more affordable.
Asked how long the inflation will likely go on for, one expert says it might continue through to the end of this year depending on further interest rate hikes.
It all depends on whether the US will continue to raise their interest rate. If the Fed raises the rates throughout next year, South Korea will likely raise rates too to prevent domestic capital outflow to the US. This will eventually bring further inflation.
He added that the government's expectations, which indicate prices to steadily ease from October, should rather be seen as an optimistic view instead of an absolute prediction. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
For those of you here in the capital region who've tried hailing a taxi late at night, I'm sure you're aware it's not an easy task. Well, relevant authorities are seeking to make the late journey back home possible, but the proposal itself is likely to be a double-edged sword. Our Choi Min-jung explains.
South Korea has laid out a set of solutions to tackle the shortage of late-night taxis. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport on Tuesday revealed the new measures in order to bring drivers back behind the wheel. Over the past couple of months, people living in the greater Seoul area have been complaining about taxi shortages at night. In Seoul, the number of taxis operating during later hours dropped by some 5,000, with many drivers moving to better-paying jobs like food delivery. However, the lifting of social distancing rules resulted in a surge in demand for taxis. To resolve these issues, the government has decided to give drivers more incentives when working at night. From 10 p.m. to 3 a.m., the fee hailing a taxi via an app has increased to around 4,000 to 5,000 won from the current 3,000. Passengers who pay this extra fee will not be required to reveal their destination to drivers to prevent drivers from selectively taking customers. A trial run is set to be implemented in the capital region from mid-October until the end of this year. Drivers are able to choose to work part-time during later hours if they wish to increase their profits. Changes have also been made to working hours. Taxi drivers currently have to follow a fixed work schedule with 2 working days followed by 1 day off. But the government has lifted this 50-year-old rule in a bid to allow drivers to work every day, ultimately increasing the supply of taxis. The government has also decided to introduce late-night bus services for high-demand areas. Subway operation hours in the capital region will also be extended to 1 a.m. Authorities have also pledged to increase the availability of platform services like Tada, which was suspended in 2020 after being accused of evading transportation business laws. Though the new plan may attract more drivers, it's not all good news for customers, especially in the greater Seoul area, as the local government is already on the way to increasing fares for late-night taxi rides starting December. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, it's showtime in the southern port city of Busan here in South Korea as movie makers and lovers from across the region gather to partake in the city's annual film fiesta, which is promising a pre-pandemic experience. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Lights, camera, action. The Busan International Film Festival, Asia's biggest film festival, kicks off Wednesday for a 10-day run in the southeastern port city of Busan. Returning to its pre-pandemic glory, the event will once again be packed with a lineup of screenings, red carpets for star guests, and awards for talented directors. The 2022 BIF will feature 243 films from 71 countries, including 89 world premieres and 13 international debuts. This year's selections will be screened at 7 theaters in the city, with full seating capacity available without social distancing restrictions. The festival will also kick off with the international premiere of Hari Mogehe's Iranian drama film Scent of Wind, and finish off with Japanese director Kei Ishikawa's A Man. Not to mention, the event will once again be filled with some of the top actors in Asia. Getting things rolling, the opening ceremony will be co-hosted by South Korean actors Ryu Jun-yeol and Chun Yo-bin at the Busan Cinema Center's outdoor theater. Hong Kong film legend Tony Leung Chiu-wai is set to attend the Asian Filmmaker of the Year award and host a career-spanning discussion with audience members. Also marking the grand return to normality, a new competitive section titled Ji-seok, named after late BIF program director Kim Ji-seok, will give awards to select works of established Asian filmmakers, along 8 nominees. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea will serve as a council member of the Int'l Civil Aviation Organization for another 3 years. According to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the country has been re-elected as one of 36 council members of the UN agency for an 8th consecutive term. The election was held at the organization's General Assembly in Montreal, where Seoul's Transport Ministry highlighted its contribution to international aviation. Now, South Korea will continue to support the strengthening of air safety and partake in setting international standards for aviation technology. A group of Haenyeos recently traveled from Jeju Island to Dokdo Island for the first time in 6 decades to delve into their memories of youth there. Our Cho Sung-min has more on the significance behind their journey back.
A group of South Korean women divers from Jeju Island, widely known as Haenyeos in Korean, arrive at Tokto, South Korea's easternmost island. This isn't their first time on the island, as they spent their youths working in the rough waters nearby some 6 decades ago.
Every morning I woke up, there were seals on every rock. I dried the seaweeds on the rock after picking them up and sold them on Ulleungdo.
Miss Im is another diver who recalls the harsh conditions.
The wind blew all week. All the dried seaweed blew away in the wind. All of those who came by had a tough time back then.
Haenyeos who lived through the Japanese colonial period are living witnesses who can testify that Tokto belongs to Korea. In the years after Korea was liberated from Japan in 1945, they moved away from Jeju to waters near Tokto. This was when they were recruited by the Tokto volunteer garrison to raise funds to help protect the island from patrol ships occasionally sent from Japan.
It just goes to show, this is evidence that Haenyeos helped us defend and rule our territory.
As records reveal, the divers had spent a substantial amount of time on Tokto. Local authorities are making efforts to preserve and highlight the historical evidence.
The divers started working near Ulleungdo and Dokdo Islands in 1954 when Gyeongsangbuk-do and Jeju Island reached an agreement. It's significant that the regions are officially renewing the agreement 68 years later.
It's vital to pass down and preserve Haenyeo culture, to find ways to improve the island and boost tourism.
The two provinces plan to launch various joint projects to preserve and find more factual evidence about the divers to claim ownership of Tokto and other potential territories that could be entangled in similar disputes. Cho Sung-min, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the US, the death toll keeps rising days after the passing of Hurricane Ian. As of Tuesday, at least 105 people have been found dead in Florida alone, as rescue teams go door to door looking for survivors of one of the worst storms to hit the US state. 4 further deaths were also reported in North Carolina. So far, over half the deaths in Florida were in Lee County, the area that was heavily hit when the storm made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. Florida's governor said on Tuesday that over 2,300 rescues were conducted and that 79,000 buildings have been checked. But the number of missing people is unknown. Meanwhile, some officials of significantly impacted regions are under scrutiny for not giving residents an earlier evacuation warning. At least 15 people have been killed and 33 injured in a gang fight in one of Ecuador's largest prisons. The violence erupted at Cotopaxi No. 1 jail in Latacunga on Monday night local time, following a census of inmates. Prisoners used knives and guns in the fighting, which flared up again on Tuesday morning, leaving another 11 injured. The government has blamed the violence on infighting between gangs over territory and drug trafficking routes. The incident is the latest in a series of such riots in Ecuador's prisons. As of February 2021, over 400 inmates have been killed in such fighting. In yet another U-turn in the Elon Musk Twitter takeover saga, Musk has reportedly agreed to buy Twitter after all. In a letter sent to the social media company on Tuesday, Musk's lawyers said the Tesla CEO will go through with the deal initially made in April. This comes after Musk tried to back out of the $44 billion agreement in July, citing concerns over spam accounts and other issues. Twitter denied the accusations and filed a lawsuit to force the takeover, with the first hearing due in mid-October. Musk's letter has asked that the lawsuit be halted. In response, Twitter said it plans to finalize the deal at the original selling price of $54.2 per share. Following the news, Twitter's share price surged to close at $52 a share before trading close after having opened at $43. And in our final story, the Queen of Country Music, Loretta Lynn, passed away on Tuesday, aged 90. The iconic American singer is best known for her 1971 hit, Coal Miner's Daughter, which was turned into an Oscar-winning movie. Starting in 1960, Lynn released over 100 songs in her decades-long career, with some tracks addressing controversial topics, including birth control pills and double standards faced by women. Lynn's success saw her inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1983 and then to the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1988. And she even received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2013 from then U.S. President Barack Obama. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good Wednesday afternoon. Due to a cold air mass from the northwest, temperatures have dipped dramatically compared to yesterday. Daytime highs in Seoul and Daegu tumbled by 3 and 6 degrees, reaching only 20 degrees and 21 degrees Celsius, respectively. And skies are murky across the country. There might be some drizzle in and around the Seoul metropolitan area, and the rain will continue until the day after tomorrow in coastal areas of Gangwon-do province due to easterly winds. The amount will be up to 100 millimeters. And there's a chance that autumn rain could fall as the first snow of the season is expected in mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province. And while checking today's high temperatures, they are 2 to 4 degrees lower than the average, with the mercury set to hit 21 degrees in Daejeon and Daegu and 22 degrees in Busan. Please dress warmly if you're heading outside. And skies will brighten up on Saturday with low in Seoul plummeting to 9 degrees, marking the coolest temperatures of this autumn. And nationwide rain is in the forecast from Sunday afternoon. Now, let's take a look at the worldwide weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow. That will be Thursday.
It is now possible for travelers to declare their items with the mobile application. After making a declaration with the mobile application, a QR code is generated. Travelers can simply scan the code when passing through the kiosk. Travelers can leave the airport immediately without the need to wait at the arrivals hall. What is more, travelers can directly connect to the website without the need to download the mobile application. And they can pass through customs and immigration more rapidly and conveniently.
학생 등 20, 30대 젊은 층 위주로 모바일 앱을 통해 세관 신고를 하는 여행객이 많아졌습니다. 빠른 통과로 여행객이 몰리지 않기 때문에 사용자 만족도가 높습니다.
안녕하세요. 관세청 홍보대사 진기수입니다. 달라진 여행자 세관 신고, 이제 모바일로 편하게 이용하세요.